All right. So in the last, we've been learning how to do basic, motion. Let's kind of continue. All of these things we've kind of learned, which is, animating position, animating scale. This fits under something called transform properties. Transform properties are properties that all layers in After Effects have. It doesn't, matter how, whether it's a video or an image, whether it's raster or vector. So, if I were to go here, no matter what this is, if I unfurl it, it says transform. You will notice things like position, scale, rotation. We'll get into some of these other ones in the future. But, this does allow for these properties to be animated. So we talked about position and we did uh, rotation. Now let's do scale. So what I'm going to do here, let's do another action. Action. Heart goes from large to small. Okay, so we're changing the scale of it. The starting pose, heart is large, and the end pose is heart is small. Okay, so once again, here's my timeline. I'm going to hit S for scale so I can work with the scale of it. And let's keep it, I could resize it here. So I'm going to click on here, hold down shift to maintain proportions. And when I'm done, I'm going to click here on the stopwatch to set a keyframe. And then let's go forward and click. And I'm going to scale it down, or I could also have just typed it in to scale it. While this is on, anytime I'm anywhere and I make a change to the properties, that would set a keyframe. So it's going to go from 230-ish to 50 over 2 seconds. Let's hit play. Excuse me. And you can see that the heart is scaling down. Okay. Just like with other ones, I'm gonna, if I go back and edit these keyframes, so I'm gonna hit this to go back to the first keyframe, set the value from 230 to 50, and let's change the second one from 50 to 250. Now it should be the opposite, where it's going to start small and then grow to 250 over time, and the scale is going up. Okay. Alrighty. Let's talk about, so in the last couple examples that we did, we either animated the position, the scale, or the rotation, right? We did one of these properties. But you can actually animate multiple properties at the same time. So what I'm going to do is animate this plane. So it's going to go from the bottom left to the upper right. While it's moving, I'm going to have it rotate, and then I'm also going to have it scale. Okay, so in other words, we're going to animate multiple properties for this layer at the same time. So I'm going to hit, let's start with position. I'm gonna, no matter where your time marker is, put it back at 0 just to have it start, and then position this where you want it to position. I want it about there, and I'm gonna hit P to animate. Then I'm gonna go forward to about 3 seconds, take this, and then put it over here. That line, by the way, is my motion line. It's showing the direction that my character is going in. If you're wondering what these little dots are, each dot actually represents a frame. And since there are 3 seconds at 30 frames a second, I actually have about 90 frames. So I'm not going to count it out, but if you counted out all of these, there should be about 90 of them total. Okay. I hit play and it goes. Okay. So that's the position property being animated. Let's also animate the rotation. I'm going to hit R, so it switches from position to rotation. Once again, I'm just going to make sure it's at the beginning, and I'm going to hit let's set it at 0, which is like the default. And I'm going to hit the stopwatch once again. And then I'm going to go to here, and let's have it rotate maybe one full rotation. So I'm going to click here, hit 1. And so what should happen now is it's going to rotate while it also moves. So in other words, two properties are going on at the same time. Now you can look at them individually by hitting P or hitting R, P for position, R for rotation. But if I want to look at all of them, a couple ways to do this. One, I could unfurl this and I could see both properties. Or if you just want to look at the properties that are being animated, you can hit the U key by itself, and that will show me the position of this object being animated and also the rotation of this object being animated. Finally, let's do scale. I'm going to hit U. Actually, okay, let's start. I'm going to put this at 0, and I'm going to set this scale here, and I'm going to hit U because I actually want to base the scale off of the location of the other keyframes, so I get a sense of like the timing. I actually don't want the scale to happen at the end, but maybe by 2 seconds. So I'm going to come here and let's do maybe 100. So what should happen is it's going to move from 0 to 3 and also rotate, but the scale is only going to go from 0 to 2 seconds. After that, it's not going to grow anymore. All right, there you go. Okay, that is animating multiple properties. All right, so let's talk a little bit about how After Effects works as a program. I'm going to open up Adobe Photoshop real quick. And I'm just going to grab like a couple photos. So I don't know. I'm going to download this picture of a horse. And I don't know. This picture of a bird. All right. So you can use Photoshop or Photopea. It's your, whatever your pleasure is, so to speak. Let's see. Now, when you work in Photoshop, as we talked about, you're essentially selecting pixels, right? And let's just say for the sake of argument, I select this horse, and what I'm going to do is copy these pixels and go to this other composition. And if I were to paste it, I have made a copy of the pixels here, and I've put the copy over here. So in other words, I don't technically need this one anymore. I could close it. I could even delete the original photo, which is here. I believe it's this one. Let me just empty my trash so you know it's gone. And that doesn't affect anything because I basically copied the content. It's nice to have the original, but I technically don't need it. Okay. Now, that is different than how After Effects works. The way After Effects works as a program is you have an AEP file. Okay. That is what these are. These are all AEP files. Okay. And when you import a image or a video, some sort of content into your project, instead of copying that content, it makes a reference to it. So let's just say for the sake of argument, you know, I don't know, I have a JPEG image, or maybe it's a movie file, like an MPEG-4 file, or maybe it's a sound file. Eventually we will have sound files. That would be an MP3 file. When After Effects brings in those files, it doesn't copy the content. It doesn't, so in other words, like, when I bring in fish.jpg or whatever it was, fish.png, it doesn't copy that content. It just creates a link between the AEP file and the actual like content file, like the literal image or the literal sound file or the literal, video file. Okay. Now, what can happen from time to time is that connection gets broken. Okay. How does that happen? Well, there's a lot of ways it could happen. One is if you were to bring in a file and then rename it. So, in other words, like let's just say for the sake of argument, my file was called fish.jpg, but I renamed it myfish.jpg. Although that doesn't seem like a big deal to us, to a computer and to a computer program, my fish and fish are completely different files. So it might go, wait, I'm looking for a file called fish or fish.jpg. I don't see one because the only file I see is a file called myfish.jpg. So it would go, wait a minute, I can't find the file. Or another reason is that if, for instance, you move a file after you import it. So in other words, like when I import, say, let's say I was to import into my After Effects file, let's say I was to import airplane.png. Okay, let's do that right now. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to import airplane.png. All right. And this when After Effects imports a file, it remembers the location of the file in relationship to your AEP file. Okay, I don't want to get too deep into file management, but essentially what's happening is it's going from here and it's like, oh, okay, that airplane.png file is in this other folder called drill files and it's inside of there. Okay. If you were to move this file outside of that folder or to a new location, so in other words, like let's say I moved it from here in my folder to here. That doesn't seem like a big deal, but the problem is that when you imported the file, After Effects remembered how to find the file, but you've now moved the file from its location. And so that confuses the computer. The way I like to explain it is like, you know where your friend lives, right? You know where their home address is. They live at 123 Main Street, Anytown, USA. Now, let's just say for the sake of argument, you go to your friend's house all the time, and then one day they just move, except they didn't tell you where they moved to. So they said, hey, come over. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to go over to their house, except they're not there because that's not where they live anymore, except they didn't tell you where they moved to. You would be rightfully confused, right? And that's how After Effects is. By moving this from its location, it was looking for it here, but it's not there anymore. It's actually over here. And the problem is that the program doesn't defaultly figure that out. And that causes trouble. Anytime you confuse a computer, that's not good because that never ends well. So if I go back, this is actually going to tell me that it can't find that file because I moved it from its original location. So what do you do in this situation where, you can tell if your file is not loading properly in After Effects because you're getting these old school color bars on all my files. So the question is, okay, how do you fix this problem? Well, first of all, make sure you have the file. If you switch computers, you may not have the files. That might be the problem, in which case you have to go get those files. Maybe it's not as bad as that. Maybe you just rename the file or you change the location of it. You could fix this problem. It's not too difficult, but what you got to do is find the file. So let's start with balloon.jpg or PNG, which is this one. What I'm going to do is go under File, and I'm going to go to Replace Footage, File, and we're going to go find that file. This of course means you have the file, and I do. We do have balloon.jpg, It's right there. It was just we just had it in a different location before. But I still have it. So what I'm going to do is File, Replace Footage, File, and let's go get balloon.jpg or PNG, and I'm going to hit Open, and it found it now. And so it actually replaced it. You can see there the icon's back, and it actually figured out the other ones because those were all in the, and they all kind of had the same problem. Now, of course, if they were in different folders, you may have to go do that individually. I may have to go back to each one individually. But you can see now that I've reestablished that connection that it can find the files properly and my composition is correct. Okay. All right. Let's talk about how to edit a file. So if you want to edit, After Effects at its core is not a image editing program, so it does not edit raster images. It's not like Photoshop or Photopea. It doesn't edit vectors in the way that you would edit maybe like, Adobe Illustrator or Figma or something like that. That being said, you could change things. So right now I have this. This is a Photoshop file, or you could edit it with uh, Photopea if you'd like. What I'm going to do is go under Edit, Edit Original. This unfortunately will now work with Photopea, but if you are using Adobe, since After Effects is an Adobe product, it would open this up into into Photoshop, and then you'd be able to make changes to it. So for instance, I don't know, maybe I want to draw a big old red X here. Make sure you save any changes, hit save. And if I do that and I go back, you can now see that that's been updated. Okay. How would I do this with Photopea? What you'd have to do with Photopea, if that's the one you're using, I'm going to open up photopea.com and I'm going to open up the file, which is photoshop.psd. You can make changes. Oops, let's draw something. And I'm going to hit save. This is saying it's going to edit my changes. And then now that I've set my changes, there you go. You should be able to do that. So it's one more step, but it's not, impossible. So that's with rasters. If I want to edit a vector, unfortunately, AI can only be edited inside of Adobe Illustrator. But so this won't work if you're using Figma. But what I could do is come into here. This is the vector file. I'm going to go to edit, edit, or sorry, file. Where did I go? I can't do this. Edit original. There we go. I had to make sure the vector file was highlighted in the project panel. That's going to open this into into Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to change the fill color to purple. There you go. Make sure you save your changes. Go back, and then that updates. Okay. All right. Last thing I'm going to do is show you guys how to export. Meaning you convert from a After Effects project into a video format. Okay. This is going to be important. This is going to be what you're going to need to do every time you guys do like a lab or a major project. I want to see your final output, not just the AEP file, but I actually want to see what it looks like visually. Okay.